Welcome to Inspiring Champions with Coach McKenzie. This podcast is dedicated to unlocking your full potential, igniting your passion, and transforming dreams into reality. Each week, I will share powerful stories, proven strategies, and inspiring insight to help you become the champion that you were born to be. Today, I have a really special guest. As you know, this show is about inspiring champions, and I want to introduce you to someone that I consider truly a real champion, a young man who has been impacting lives, who have been dedicated to making sure kids have an opportunity for just a better life through education. William Watkins is definitely one of the most top educators that I know. And so, William, welcome to Coach McKenzie, Inspiring Champion. If you don't mind, tell our audience a little bit about your background, who you are, and how you got started in education.
Well, thank you first for welcoming to the podcast. I started in education probably as a result of not getting into education. I was originally a retail banker, and I went through management training and all the other stuff. And throughout my college time, I was always going to education classes with some of my peers. And after I got out of college and moved to Minnesota, I followed up on tutoring and helping kids. So I was just tutoring people, particularly inner city students, and getting better on what they were doing. But my passion was to teach. I joined the alternative program at University of St. Thomas, where I received my master's in curriculum, and then followed up and got a master's in technology education. And I've been teaching for about 36 years now since then, and taught all grades. And specifically now I'm teaching computer programming, robotics, and art, visual arts together.
And William, this is our back to school podcast. So one of the things is, and you're familiar with this term, in Minnesota, educating of African-American kids, kids of color, kids that look like you and me, there's truly an alarm at the gate. Minnesota for the last 15 to 20 years have ranked 48, 49, 50, and when it comes to what people talk about is the achievement gap. I like to talk about the opportunity gap, but you are somebody who's been in the midst of that. And one of the things that I always like to say, and I'm constantly saying, we are at a time where we need an education revolution, particularly because the current system that you work in and have been dedicated to for so long does not meet the needs of our kids. And I ask a question, and I'll ask you this. When I have an opportunity to go in and visit a lot of schools and see what's going on in those buildings. And oftentimes I walk out and I ask myself, are these building dream killers? Or is this a place where kids can go find their dreams so that they can change their lives? Your thoughts?
First of all, I'm glad you brought up a source that's we're misinformed about. When we look at Minnesota, and people generally think, wow, Minnesota has a great graduation rate, and we're one of the top states for graduating and putting kids on to college. And that might be true for a great percentage of the state of Minnesota, but for the people we're talking about, children of color, specifically African-American children, Hispanic children, our Somali populations, we are not in the top. We're closer to what you said, 49th or 50th, in supplying what we call launching for a life. I think that a lot of the stuff that you spoke about, a lot of things you were hinting toward, like the building being a place of dreams, it truly is a place of dreams. When you first get there, there is a vast difference between children who start early education and end up actually graduating from the system. And the only thing you really can attribute it to is what they go through to get to that point. We need to focus and do a better job of keeping the promise of public education in Minnesota, not only in Minnesota, all over the United States. I think I've talked to you before about, was this a real deal? Was this a fake? Or is this a conspiracy to not go well? And I think to a certain degree that yes, it is. There's a lot of forces that have power and have influence that absolutely didn't plan on this going well and don't have a lot of vested interest in it continuing to go well. Not only charter but private schools and other options tend to be the choice of people who are making decisions for public education. I hinted at when I talked to you before that some people who are deciding policies and educational funding and things like that have not stepped into school since they were a little child in elementary school. Some of them more than 20 or 30 years since they've been to a school. And that should not be the case. I'm sure if this was their own children's school, they would have been in it by every couple of months for a PTA or a conference, whatever. How can you legislate for a large group of people and never even visit and see how it's going? So when you say a source place where dreams might not be met, that is true. But it is a source that dreams could potentially still be met if we change what we're doing. And you mentioned revolution. That's almost exactly what we need. We need to stop and turn around and go the other way and go a different way than what we're going, because a lot of things we're doing right now are just not effective. And I can't say it any clearer than that. They're just not effective. And I base this off of 36 years of teaching and seeing different systems come up, go away, another one come up and go away, teaching in the public sector, teaching in an independent private school, and then back in the public again, and a lot of volunteering and a lot of camps and things in between. We do need to change it.
Well, one of the things that as somebody who's been in and out of, again, I talk about going to schools, and you've been, as they would say, boots on the ground. I mean, and you have an interesting background because you've given a great portion of your life in working in public education in urban areas, and then you've also been blessed, or I don't know if that's the appropriate word, but you also had an opportunity to teach in one of the top private institutions in the state of Minnesota. One of my observations, and correct me if I'm wrong, is oftentimes when I walk into buildings where the majority of the kids look like me, I see where there's a lot of what I call lowering the bar. You know what I'm saying? And the reason that concerns me is oftentimes, and we've talked about this, a lot of teachers don't realize that, like, that kid is only going to get to do fourth grade, fifth grade, sixth grade one time. And if you don't get it right, that kid is never, most times, going to get an opportunity to catch up. Now, I always say this, and you've been doing it, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Reading with a lot of support, after school programs, et cetera, hooked on phonics and that kind of stuff, maybe you can catch up in reading. But because math is so layered that when you miss, you just never can catch up. And when you look at the statistics, as they say, our biggest challenges are reading and math, right? And our kids are falling behind. And the interesting say, and I've seen this, I've been in a classroom where a bad fourth grade teacher has impacted the lives of students for the rest of their educational career. Am I seeing the wrong? Am I imagining? Is it just, as they would say, just my imagination?
First of all, the expectations is something that we have to take seriously. It's hard to lift if you had a weight bar and you said, my expectation is to lift it, and I was expecting someone to help me. You're not going to be able to lift it by yourself by lifting one side. It's going to appear very lopsided, and it's not going to turn out well for you. When we expect things of children to succeed, we have to set those same expectations for ourselves, that they are going to succeed and they are going to need certain resources and they're going to need certain supports for that to happen. When we talk about the classrooms like you're talking about, where children are there for one time, that truly is, that's true. I mean, I've phrased with children I've worked with and shared a learning space with, because I'm not the professional expert on anything. But when we're sharing a learning space, I said, this is a unique time that I've been allowed to be with you and you've been allowed to be with me. This will not happen again. After these seconds, these minutes go by, we might not ever have this, we won't have this time again. I don't think our system is framing it that way. We're definitely not treating it like a unique opportunity and a singular opportunity to do better by children. And The goal, why math and reading are very important, and they're the core of a lot of things we understand and what we go forth doing in a lot of professions. What's more important is, are you able to think? Are you able to think and understand and then go forth and problem solve based upon what you are thinking, understanding, and discerning from information that's being given to you? Now, the tools of mathematics, very helpful as far as calculating and figuring out something. The tools of reading, very helpful as far as understanding directions, reading and writing and explaining something that you have learned or observed and things like that. But number one, and this is one I think we don't have a great enough expectation of because we're still so tied up into the core curriculums, is that kids need to be able to think. And they need to be able to problem solve. And we're not giving them invocation toward this learning. And by that I mean, if you're not more excited about your video game and your phone, if what I'm teaching is not more exciting about that, well, I don't blame you for looking at your phone or waiting to say, what's the next game we're going to play? Or this is boring. We have to expect that these kids are going to be ready to think and contribute to our society in a meaningful way. And that's what I see mostly right now. Teachers, you can go next door to the one teaching, you have the one great and one not so effective. And they're living in the same building right now. And that's everywhere. That's not just in public. That's in private sectors as well. You will have a varying degree of what kind of teachers you're going to have. But my biggest thing is the expectations, and that we have to change into a thinking mode rather than just this receiving core stuff and putting it in our head and pumping it out like little computers.
Okay, William, one of the things that, as a coach, and I know as a teacher, you agree on the importance of culture, the culture in a building. And I'll say to two C's, right? Culture and caring. You told me a while back about a fantastic story. I want you to talk about your side, your approach as kids come in to your room every day. And share that with the audience.
Well, you hit on a point. You reminded me of that when you talked about culture, because in everything we do, we expect a culture to exist. And again, it's not a one-sided expectation; it's a mutual expectation. And when you're establishing a culture in school, or it should be a learning culture, a learning environment, and it should be a mistake-free learning environment. You can make mistakes and still be positive in this culture. Another thing is it has to be a safe environment, a safe culture for people to grow. You don't plant flowers in an acidic flower bed. You plant them in a fertile flowering bed with a lot of fertilizer and a lot of water and a lot of care. Now, and we get this all the time. Well, they're inner city kids, and we got these kids in this rough, and they have so much going against them coming into school. And this is true. We have a lot of generational trauma. We have a lot of direct trauma that kids are undergoing every day as they come into our schools. That's not our challenge. Our challenge is after they get to our schools. What are you going to do with that? And how are you going to address the trauma? And how are you going to address that as far as getting to learn? Now, while some things are too big to overcome with just school, you might need some counseling, you might need some help. A lot of them can be addressed. And when I say that, I mean when they come to the door, it should be a different place than outside the door. When they come to that address, their whole mindset should change, because the culture is so strong toward learning, toward support, and toward invocations toward learning, that that's all they want to think about. You mentioned some of the reminder I had when I was elementary as a classroom teacher. I was teaching in a school. There was in the city. One of the things I made a hand sign the size of a hand. My hands are large. And I put it outside my door, and I wrote by the sign, it says, slap the wall, cross the line, leave the rest of the world behind. Knowledge waits ahead. Don't look back. And I had my kids, and I explained to them what it was for. I said, now when you come to school every day, when you're walking in the room, I'm going to need you to slap that wall. And at that time, you need to put aside everything that's an obstacle to you doing what you have to do inside this classroom. And it was very clear to them that no one ever said that before because someone didn't know what I was saying. I said, I mean, all we do in here is school. And all I'm here to do is help you and support you. And I asked some of them, if you can't slap the wall before you walk in, maybe you need me to help you with some of the resources we have at school. A social worker, a psychologist, our principal, and even more if we needed to escalate to something larger. And I did have people who had students who stood out in the hallway and said, Mr. Watkins, I need help today. I can't get my mind focused on school. And this is a culture that we set up for my classroom. Now, when you set up culture, it's like plants. If they're healthy plants, they're going to spread. And as we got more and more healthy plants, it didn't matter who we brought into the class. We could have people transferring in from out of state and very difficult cities, very difficult circumstances, but within the morning, these students had got around them and told them, this is how it is here. No, I know it was that way somewhere else, but this is how it is here. And yeah, he'll help you. And if you don't do what you're supposed to do, he'll also get with you. And this was a culture that we had set up for our room. Now, it was a culture of rigor. It was also a culture of success and a culture that didn't have a failure thing in this, that you could fail, you're not any good anymore. And I believe it was successful because I got a lot of students from that class who I've seen years from now. And the only thing they do remember is they never give up and they never stop trying. They never stop focusing on what they're trying to get to and not on the things that were dragging them down or pulling them away, but what they're trying to achieve. I think this is a culture we need to establish in our school system that tells kids it's not about the specifics you achieve, it's about the mindset and the process that you take in achieving those things, because that's transferable. Whether you pick whatever you pick, it's transferable life skill.
So, William, obviously, this is a conversation that we can have for hours and hours. I know your passion about education. With school starting, I want you to look into the camera and talk to that parent out there that's going to show up someplace in the United States that's going to, as we talked about, hoping that there's a system that's developed that has enough pressure to turn what some might consider as a piece of coal, right, into a diamond. Uh, Tell that parents how they can help in that process. And then lastly, I want you to close by speaking to that young teacher who's going to be new this year walking into that classroom.
Well, as a parent, first of all, I would say thank you for entrusting us with this is a sacred thing. You've entrusted us to make what you have created, your best work, even better. Actually, fulfill its potential. And that's something that I want you to know because I want you to partner with me. And when you bring them in, I want you to know that you know more about this child than I do. But I know more about some of the things that this child is going to do at school or need to do at school. And I'm going to need your help in aligning those things so I'm not talking in a way or acting in a way that's going to be conflicting with where your child is, socially, emotionally, and what you know about them. So we're going to try to form a partnership. And for this partnership, I'm going to promise you that I'm going to give every bit of my effort to be an experiential bridge. That bridge that takes this child from here to here, based upon all the experiences that I have had as a teacher and as a person. Now, if you're a new teacher, if you're a brand new teacher, I want you to we always have a lot of talking points. We do a lot of things. We say a lot of positive things in school. And we hear and read a lot of things. I want you to not throw those away, but our acts and our deeds speak louder than our words. And I need you to make some specific efforts to show your children that you're there with them, that you're learning with them, learning about them, and you're learning to do better too. And I also want you to make specific efforts to be a part of your learning community at school and your community outside of the school. Learn your parents, learn their cultures, learn your school cultures, and be active in it. Not a person that comes and drives in and works and then gets to my car and drives away. That's not a person who's actively engaged, invested in a group of people there. And I know this is asking more. than you'd have to do if you had another job. But teaching is more than you have to do if you had another job. And you chose it. And congratulations for choosing that. Pat you on the back for doing it. But there are certain things. You're called to do higher things. You're going to be asking kids to do higher things. We do hard things. You're called to do hard things. That's about all I have to say to you, new teacher. That and good luck. And don't get hard on yourself when you make a mistake. Use it as an example to show kids that we work through our mistakes. And we work through our errors. And we thrive after that.
Thank you, William Watkins, for joining Coach McKenzie, Inspiring Champion. As you can see, William Watkins is a true champion. And if you like the show, we want you to share it with your friends. Share it on your social media. Let everybody know that you've watched this podcast and you're a fan. And if you'd like to be a sponsor, go to coach@coachmckenzie.com, put in a request, and we'll send you more information. Remember, this is your favorite coach, winner, warrior, champion, the guy that loves to refuse to lose. And tune in for our next episode with Coach McKenzie, Inspiring Champion.